Hi there guys, and welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero Show with me, your host Simon Conboy. Just continuing with the series of franchise reviews from the years 2007 through to 2016. In this series I'm covering each individual franchise, covering their win-loss record, any coaching changes, some mentions about playoff appearances and that jazz, and then evaluating the last 10 years of draft, which I'll explain how I'm doing that in a bit more detail once I get to that point of the video. So we got the Chicago Bears for this episode. Once upon a time, Lovie Smith was there. They were pretty solid. You knew there'd be a good defense every year. It's been a bit of a transition for them. Felt like they've been rebuilding for the last few years. So in the last 10 years, they've amassed a record of 74-86 with only one playoff appearance and a division title win that year. So very disappointing. Of course, hopes were higher when they brought in Jay Cutler all those years ago, that era just having came to an end. So it feels like a particularly relevant time to do this for the Bears. So yeah, very middling record. I think that's reflected. Last year obviously terrible records have been poor the last 3 seasons. So there's a lot of 8-8, 7-9, 9-7 kind of seasons with them. It's reflected in that 74-86 record overall. You had Lovie Smith from 2007 to 2012. You knew they were going to be good defensively. Never got the offense fixed. Bought in Tressman for 2013 and 14 to try and do so. That never worked out. It was a bit of a disaster. And now they've got John Fox in and attempting what I believe is a pretty big rebuild job. Of course, very poor last year. So, getting to the last 10 years worth of drafting, trying to see if there's any correlation between their records and draft success. Way I'm grading this, I'm going through the first, second and third round, going through each individual pick. If I believe that pick was solid, the team gets +1 to its overall score at the end. First rounders I'm grading a little more harshly, which I think is fair, and taking into account where they were drafted, specifically, top 15 picks I expect more from than guys picked in pick 29 through 32, for example. 4th through 7th, this exercise taught me anything. It's most of these guys do not do anything in the league. I will specifically mention players that have. They will be deemed value picks and add a score of +1. Players who have kind of not really done too much, been okay for their draft spot, will not contribute, and then -1 for any busts. Players who have underperformed for their draft status. So, going back to 2007, getting a bit of a time machine, I suppose. First round draft pick. Wow, this one ended up being interesting. Greg Olsen, the tight end. Fantastic player. Been wonderful in Carolina. Didn't really do too much for Chicago. Mistake letting him go, that's for sure. They should have kept him. I'm honestly sick of dealing with him. He's done horrible things to my Buccaneers. Horrible, horrible things. So yeah, solid pick. It'll be reflected in the Bears' score as a solid pick because, they spotted the talent and they got it. It just obviously didn't work out for him there, but great player. Fantastic pick. In the second, who's this? Dan Bazuin, defensive end. I don't even know who that was. That was a bust. He didn't do anything. And the third, Garrett Wolfe, the running back. He was a bust. Didn't really do anything. Also in the third, Michael Quinn, a linebacker. He did nothing. It's another bust. Oh no, Okuo? Either way, didn't do anything, bust. If I got his name wrong, my bad. Should have done more in the league, then we'll talk about you. In the 5th, Corey Graham, defensive back. He's had a pretty good career. Goes down as a value pick. Moving on to the 2008 draft, Chris Williams, the offensive tackle, with 14th pick. He was a bust. They tried moving him at guard, injury prone, poor when he did play. That was a disaster. In the second, running back Matt Forte, fantastic pick. Great player. Great player. Absolute home run. They nailed that one. No doubt there. In the third, Earl Bennett, the wide receiver. That's gone down. It's just mediocre. There's some bits and bobs. Pretty reasonable production for a third rounder. Not enough for me to say it was a solid pick, but not a bust either. Marcus Harrison, defensive tackle. That was a bust. And Zach Bowman goes down as a pretty good value pick in round 5. He contributed. So good job there. 2009 draft, we've got no first rounders. I believe this was just after the Jay Cutler trade. So we've got 2 thirds. Jerome Gilbert, defensive tackle, did nothing. That's a bust. Joaquin Iglesias, a wide receiver, he did nothing. He was a bust. And we get some pretty good value there in round 4 with Henry Melton, defensive tackle. Injuries kind of shortened his career, but he was a really, really good defensive tackle for a 2-3 year spell. So that goes down as a great value pick. And Lance Louis, the guard, not a great player by any means, but competent, at worst very good depth, and at best a reasonable starter. So great job there in the 7th. He goes down as a value pick. 2010 draft, once again, not many picks fall out of the Jay Cutler trade there. Major Wright, the safety, mediocre, played some games, wasn't ever particularly good, wasn't awful for them. So that goes no score there. The 2011 draft, Gabe Karimi at 29 as tackle. He was a busted, absolutely nothing, was very poor. And the 2nd, Stephen Pyer, the defensive tackle. And in the 3rd, Chris Conti. I'm combining the two of them together to go with a solid because they both played. I don't think either of them on their own was enough to be a solid pick. But if you combine the two, okay starters, gave them some games, I'll go with. Again, my list, I'll do it how I want. I'll combine the two to a side because I was kind of struggling there. But I think if you combine it, it's reasonable. So, 2012 draft, Shane McClellan at number 19, defensive end, absolute bust. That was terrible. In the 2nd, Alshon Jeffrey, of course, no longer part of the team, but he was very good for them, so that's a solid pick. In the 3rd, Brandon Harden, I don't even remember who that is. That was a bust. He's done nothing. 2013 draft, we've got Carl Long at guard, 20th pick, solid pick, very good player. In the 2nd, John Bostic, a linebacker. I think really he's been a bust. You can get good backers in the 2nd round, as this list, this series will show. He's not been good enough, so I'm putting that down as a bust. Now for the next 3, last 3 seasons, I'm a bit more iffy, handing out definitive grades, particularly last 2 years. Some of these players haven't played enough, so there's a lot more no scores waiting to be decided. I think that's only fair. So 1st round pick, Cole Fuller, number 14, defensive back. He's been pretty good when he's been healthy, but he's had a lot of injuries. I'm going to wait to see him play more. No score there. Ego Ferguson, defensive tackle, that was a bust. He's done nothing. And Will Sutton, defensive tackle, no score there. 2015 draft, we got Kevin White, wide receiver, 7th overall. He's been injured. Didn't do too much when he has played. I'm not going to give him a bust yet, but it's not far off. In fact, no, I think I gave Rashad Perriman a bust. Okay, I'm going to give him a bust at this point. I've got no choice, and he was a top 10 pick as well. So that could change. I reserve the right to revisit that one. Eddie Goldman, the defensive tackle. I think he's been a good player for them. That was a solid pick. Hronis Grasu, a centre. He was a bust. Adrian Amos, the safety, in the 5th. I've put him down as value. He's good backup. Depth, maybe shouldn't be starting, but he's, for a 5th rounder, pretty good value, I think. Could get better, still young. 2016 draft, Leonard Floyd, happy to say he's solid at this point. He had a really good rookie year, 9th overall pick, traded up to get him, but yeah, that was a good pick. And the 2nd, Cody Whitehair, that was also a pretty good pick. I thought he had a good rookie year. I'm willing to say that was a solid pick at this point. And the 3rd, John Bullard, don't know yet at this point. And in the 5th, Jordan Howard, the running back, great value pick. He was one of the best running backs in the league last year on a terrible team. I'm willing to say that is definitely a value pick. So last year's draft could potentially, if it was, if I had more years from that group, that could potentially be a contender for my favourite draft list on Friday. However, it's only been 1 year, but I have to say it was one of the best drafts of last year, and that's definitely looks like the case at this point. So in total for the Bears, this is not the prettiest. So 1 absolute home run in Matt Forte, 6 solid players, and 6 value players, 13 busts, and that's going up to 14 because I put Kevin White there. 7 sides, so that means a grand total of 0. So they've done a pretty poor job. Good job with the value. The 1st rounders are really where it's been a disaster. We've got 8 picks made, 3 have graded out as solid, and they're for the most part recent. Two, one of them's Greg Olsen, who they shouldn't get the point for in a way. Two, jury's still out, and three, clear busts there. But just not so many busts from the second and third round. They've really not got players that have contributed from those rounds. It's a real shame, but that's just the way it is. It's a grade out of 0, which is one of the worst scores I've come across at this point. I think that's probably reflecting why this team's in a rebuild. You know, they had a number of years where they just did not get anything. This score's really been resurrected by the fact I've been generous to last year's draft. Otherwise, they'd be down there with the absolute worst of them. And looking through the list, I mean, the second and third rounders have just been atrocious. Very, very little, I mean, and probably as little production as anyone else in the league from those selections. So it's no wonder the Bears are in the position they're in. What do you guys think? Have I been too harsh on the Bears drafts? I'd imagine most Bears fans would probably agree with me, because I've seen some fury on the internet over how this team's drafted over the years. Let me know, what do you guys think of the series so far? The grading system, is something that I might revisit at some point. I've just gone for a very simple one at this point in time. I think I could definitely elaborate on it a bit more, but I just want to establish a baseline at this point. But any comments, whether it's through the Cover Zero Facebook, the comments below, through the Cover Zero Twitter, I'll do my best to get back to absolutely everyone. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this show as much as I've enjoyed the research and the making of them. I think, pretty informative. I've definitely learned a lot through this, and seen a lot of names that I just did not remember. Makes you realise how difficult this draft process is. Been really fun. Check out the Patreon, like, share, subscribe and all that. If you enjoyed the video, please check out some more. I hope you enjoy those too. Check out the Friday show. That's going to really build on a lot of what I've done this week to come to some conclusions once I've got all the stats together. Been a pleasure, and as always, go Bucks.